This video is a recording of the webinar. You got accepted into college? Now what? So a lot of people think that once you get into college, that's it, and you don't have to do anything else. So most likely you're in a senior in high school, but there are some things that you have to do to make this transition from high school to college. And the question is, a lot of people get into more than one college. What do you do if that happens? And then how to review your financial aid package. So I'm also going to, like I stated before, David Johnny is a recent graduate of Morehouse College, 2015 English major, and he's going to also talk about his experience. So, hmm, how many colleges did you get into, David Johnny?
I got into about 6 colleges. So pretty much I did the Common app for HBCUs. So I applied to about 4 HBCUs, and then I applied for like 3 more state colleges in the state of Alabama.
Okay. So you applied to 6 and you got into all 6. I know in my case, I applied to about 5. I applied to 2 HBCUs and then 3 colleges and universities that were inside California because that's where I was from. So UC Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, I think UC Santa Barbara, Hampton, and Spelman, and I got into all of those. So what did you do? I mean, I did early admissions for Spelman because that was like my number one choice. So what I did was the early application, and I knew by December that I got in. So I just kind of was, waiting on the other ones. I mean, I didn't really care about the other ones. I just knew I wanted to go to Spelman. How about you? When did you know?
So mainly for me, I can definitely say that when I started the application process as early as August, September. So one of my good friends from high school, her mother was a reading coach. So she helped me and a lot of my friends. She exposed us to like a lot of different things on like applying to colleges, doing scholarships. So I got started pretty early. I can definitely say I didn't apply to Morehouse until March of my senior year. And that was after they reached out to me asking, was I going to apply? And, they're waiting on my application, that they would waive the application fee for me if I would submit my application by like mid-March.
Okay. See, you brought up a good point too. That is, I think, important. I was in Upward Bound, and so they had a situation where any college that I applied to, basically, my fees were waived. So that's how I was able to apply to 5 different colleges. So were all of your fees waived for the colleges that you applied to?
No, I had to pay for a few fees, but for the most part, I did have to pay for most of my fees, except for a few colleges where they actually waived it if I applied by a certain time.
Okay. So then, David, I know I knew by Christmas that I got into Spelman, and I had applied to 4 other colleges, so I was waiting on them. I already knew in my heart that I wanted to go to Spelman, but at the same time, I was worried about money. For you, you said, at what point did you first start getting your letters of acceptance? Since you said you started applying for college in August.
It probably would have been the first or second week of November and leading up to Christmas. That's when I first got like my first acceptance letter. And they kind of started rolling in between winter and the very early spring.
Oh. So when you got your acceptance letter, did you also get your financial aid package within there, or was it a separate letter that just said, hey, you got in and, great, let us know whether or not you are going to come?
So it depended on the school. Most of the schools that I applied to, they told me you got in, and if I received a scholarship, they actually told me in the acceptance letter. A few colleges, they told me financial aid will follow up with me, which is kind of my admittance package, like what I qualified for. But most of the schools kind of told me up front if they were going to offer me money.
Okay. So then my question to you is about financial aid. Did you do your financial aid application when you did your college application?
So, we have to do the FAFSA. So, I went ahead and I did that right at the beginning of January 2011. I didn't fill out any financial aid applications until if I was really certain I was going to that school. That's when I did the financial aid applications. I was mainly just kind of seeing what were they offering me before I started filling out any type of applications to see what I would have to pay them if I didn't receive a scholarship.
Okay, so you did it a little bit different than me. What I did was I did my financial aid application and my application, but I can't say that because for Spelman, that was different. But I did them both at the same time. So another thing is, so then you get to the point, like you said, you're getting all these applications, they're rolling in, and then you are trying to figure out which college to choose. So how did you make the choice of what college to go to since you got into so many?
So what I ultimately did, I created like a spreadsheet or like just kind of like a diagram, all the colleges, the location. I looked at whether it's PWI versus HBCU. I looked at the distance from home, what that would be. I also kind of factored in what they were offering me. Like if they did give me a scholarship, how much would I have to come out of pocket to attend the institution? My rule of thumb when I was applying to schools is that I'd rather someone pay for me to come to their school versus me pay them. So that was the mindset that I had going into senior year, which really helped me with kind of determining if I was going to go to a certain college. And kind of like I just really did like a really deep comparison. I knew I kind of wanted to be a teacher, so I wanted to make sure that if I went to a school, it was preparing me to be a teacher or to do something in the work of education. And then ultimately, after I kind of like compared them, I also went on campus visits as well. And I think that also played a really big part on if it was a fit for me or not.
Okay, that's a good way to determine. I know for me, my heart was set on Spelman. So once I got in, I was like, that's where I'm going. No matter what, I'm willing to work for it. At that time, Spelman only gave me like $2,000 in like scholarship. And I was like, man, I got into UC Berkeley and all these other schools in California. And they're almost giving me a full ride. And my dad had got laid off. So I was like, it is tempting to stay here. But at the same time, I was like, I'm going into teaching. I want to teach Black and brown kids. And I want to learn from a different perspective. So even though the UCs, the in-state schools, they're giving me almost a full ride, I can't get that perspective that I can get at Spelman. So I kind of I would play around and just to see if like the UCs would give me more. So I remember calling up like UC Berkeley. I was like, I've got into a whole bunch of colleges and I see that you gave me this financial aid package. Now the other schools are giving me more. I want to know, what can you do for me, especially if you guys are committed to diversity, to helping me out? So what can you do? And then so they would talk to me and they'd say, okay, we'll get back to you to see what we can do. And they up their, package for financial aid even more so that I get more money. But in the end, I went to Spelman because that was my dream school. They had exactly what I needed that I couldn't get anywhere else. So I went out on faith. I had $250 in my pocket. I had first semester paid for, and I was like, you know what? I'm willing to work for it, so I'll figure it out. But not everyone is like me.
I think if I would have known that power of negotiation, or just kind of saying like, hey, this is what this school's offering me. Can you up my offer, or can you like come up with something better to get me to come there? I think that would have also would have worked to my favor. I think that's one thing that many students don't realize is that they do have the ultimate power when it comes to schools offering them money, is that a lot of times they can offer you more, but it's just kind of a negotiation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then you have to contact the financial aid office and all this writing and stuff. you could write to them, but I feel like picking up the phone and actually knowing someone in the financial aid's office can do wonders for you. Because if you call, I remember I used to get up on the West Coast at 6 o'clock, or 5:30, and then I'd call to the East Coast, and then I, call up to Spelman or whoever, and I'd be like, "Hi, this is Amore from California, and I just wanted to know," but I would make sure that I say where I'm from, and then I make sure that I call back weekly so that after a while they knew who I was. So like if anything came up, they would be like, "Hey, Amore, I know you're trying to get some money. This is what we have." And so that's what I did. But now, thinking back, I was a little irritated. My dad was like, go to community college, but that could have been another alternative. But I just felt like I wanted to go to a 4-year. But one way a lot of people don't think of is if you don't necessarily have the money and you already got into a 4-year and you can't really afford it, if you go to community college for 2 years and then transfer, a lot of people don't think about that. So you already got in once, community college you don't really have to apply to, and that's a way to save money and then transfer in. And maybe you could have, or like you and I talked about before, maybe if you did get in, you don't have the money, ask them if they could defer the start date. So maybe you need a year to make some more money to save up. So that's another route that people can take too.
Absolutely, I agree.
So now a lot of people don't know that David Johnny got the Gates. So tell us the story. Remember how you were telling me before that you were actually not thinking of going to Morehouse because you didn't necessarily have the money until something else happened. So tell us about that story.
So pretty much, I knew that Morehouse probably was my number one school, but I was also very realistic with myself, is that I knew I could not afford the $40,000 a year, or $42,000 a year, or $44,000, depending on the year. They go up pretty much every year. I knew that I could not afford that price tag, and I knew that I did not want to go into debt trying to go to my dream school. As much as I would have loved to, I just recognized that I would rather someone pay me to come to the institution versus me going into debt. Right. And so I was set on going to Tuskegee University, and it wasn't until March, Morehouse reached out to me and told me, "Hey, apply, we'll waive your application fee. We think you'll be a good candidate here." Went up for my campus visit. At the end of March, they told me I got in. When they gave me my acceptance letter, there was no financial aid. They gave me a loan application. It was like, you qualify for loans. And I do recognize that when I applied, I pretty much applied after the priority deadline. So most of the scholarship funds have been allocated. So for the most part, I already knew it was a very slim to none chance that I would get funding to go to Morehouse. And I want to say it was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later, I didn't tell my parents or anything like that. I actually applied for the Gates Millennium Scholarship. And for those who may not know about that, that's pretty much scholarship funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which it pays full 4-year or up to 5 years of undergraduate education at any U.S. university or college. And I applied for that scholarship in January. Only 2 people that knew about it were my 2 recommenders that recommended me for it. Didn't really tell anybody. And my mom called me one day in April. I was at work, and she's like, "You have this envelope from the Gates Millennium people." I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was kind of there. Once they told me I got the scholarship, it was then I realized I could afford to go to Morehouse. And so that's how I ended up in Morehouse in the fall of 2011.
Look at you. But then I just heard something that you said that you were at work. So what kind of work did you do in high school? Because I worked also. I did a whole bunch.
So in high school, I was a part of my school's finance academy, which is pretty much a career and technical academy. My high school has different academies for like different career paths. And so at one point in time, when I was in high school, I knew at one point, I said I wanted to be a corporate lawyer, a corporate attorney, or I wanted to work in finance. And so I actually completed the co-op program at my high school. So pretty much I took all of my elective courses freshman and sophomore year. By junior and senior year, I got paid to get a grade, or I got a grade to get paid. That's how I should say it. Where
Oh,
I took a co-op class where fourth period I would leave school at 1:20. I would go to work from pretty much 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week, and pretty much my grade was based off of my time sheet that I filled out every 2 weeks. Got paid for it, made really good money doing it. I worked at a mortgage company in the file room, so I
so
was a
did I. I worked at a mortgage company for my little senior intern.
so I did that for up to 3 years. I actually did that up until maybe my sophomore year in college.
Mm-hmm.
So even after I graduated, they allowed me to come back during my holiday breaks to kind of earn some extra cash to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really great opportunity. It kind of gave me experience in the work field, as well as just kind of like those skills that really helped me out when I was at Morehouse, interviewing skills, everything like that. So very beneficial to me because it gave me real life experience and real world experience at 16, 17. And I highly encourage any student that's in high school to take advantage of a program like that.
Yeah, that's really good. I know another thing that like you talked about, I don't know if you did. I mean, I got in, like you said, you know what you qualify for. So I also would apply for tons of scholarships, but I felt a little bit more at ease once I knew that I got into my dream school. So when I sign up for the scholarships or apply for the scholarships, I'd be like, I got into Spelman and this is where I'm going to, and I tie it into Spelman. So I felt a little bit more grounded because I got in, I knew I wanted to go there. And so basically when I applied to scholarships, I can say this money would go towards this school. Whereas if I didn't necessarily know where I got in, it would just kind of be like up in the air and I'm writing like I need money for college, but then I don't know where. But I think it's important for people to keep applying for scholarships. And one of the hardest things too about getting into college, and especially if you apply to more than one, is like kind of like, some people may not be have faith in a higher being, but I do. So it's kind of like you're uneasy because you don't know what's going to happen, but you still have to be kind of like a patient waiter and still do the work while you're waiting. So I just kind of rolled with the punches, and I just said, always thought about what my dream was. And for me, it was to go to college and to be the first one in my family. But let's get on to this other topic, which I think is very important, is how, so you got into college and you got into colleges, so you already made your decision. That's fine. But a lot of students don't think about how they are going to transition from high school to college. And the biggest thing, especially in this day and age, is I think that a lot of young people need to think about their electronic footprint. Just because you got into college doesn't mean that they can't grab that acceptance away because you started saying crazy stuff on social media. So what kinds of suggestions do you have in that arena as well as others on how to kind of like make that transition and stay steady while you are going through the year?
Transition from high school to college is a big one in many ways. You're going from being kind of in a restricted environment to more you're making your own decisions, and your choices are a reflection of what you decide. And I think nowadays, especially I would even say maybe 6 years ago when I was a freshman in Morehouse, we didn't have Facebook Live. We didn't have, Instagram was just became a thing my freshman year of college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now anything can go viral now. It doesn't matter what you post, no matter what you say, it can go viral with a matter of a click. And I think it's very important to recognize that what you say, once you put it out there, it's out there. We can screenshot it. You can record the screenshot. You can pretty much do anything. And I just caution anyone, whether if you are transitioning from high school to college or transitioning from college to the workforce, be mindful of what you post, what you're saying, because you never know who has access to it. It's really important, especially when it comes down to colleges, because no matter what institution you go to, yes, they're lucky to have you, but also keep in mind that the same way that you got in, they can easily get you right on out. And I always tell people it's pretty much hard to get it. It can be really easy to get into college, but it's even easier to remain. It's even easier to get kicked out of college.
Right.
And I think we have to. I would just encourage any senior in high school to be aware of what you're putting just out there, because pretty much nowadays that follows you. And you don't want something so small that happened when you were 17 or 18 follow you throughout your collegiate career and your adult career. You don't want that to happen. And my rule of thumb is if you're gonna post ignorant stuff or just post any and everything, don't do it under your name. And that's just being honest. That's just being completely honest. Don't put your real name out there. Let's be fun about it.
I was gonna say, you know what? If you just have a lot of heated stuff that you need to say, get a journal.
Get a book.
Go ahead
But,
and write in a journal.
I just highly encourage people, students in particular, you definitely have the right of free speech, but also don't let your right of free speech stop you from getting where you need to be,
Right.
So just being mindful. Nobody's
Get
telling
that
you
journal. Like if you really need to say something, get that journal, get a therapist, tell them everything, complain, do what you need to do. I mean, and then you could just put it away later. But that, like you said, it's a different animal nowadays. It's different.
Right.
You didn't necessarily have to worry about it. I didn't necessarily have to worry about it, but everybody, basically the whole world's watching you. So you definitely want to clean up your social footprint, or if it's good, just keep it steady.
But sadly, I hate to say, people get easily offended now. And so you have to be mindful of what you may say, how other people may perceive that. So I think it's just mindful. If you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't say it online.
Yeah. But I used to be able to say a whole bunch of stuff to people's face, but I don't necessarily think that.
Right.
I was a little bit crazy when I was in high school. So, but that's where the journal came in, which was good,
Right.
You need crazy thoughts, I could just go ahead and put it in a journal and then just put it away in a book. See, it's between me and the journal. Right. Sometimes the whole wide world doesn't need to hear every single thought, what you ate, what you think about your principal, what you think about the girl who's getting on your nerves, the guy who you used to date, just whatever, But yeah, so I think getting like I said, so you got into college or some colleges. The question is now what? So now you know the now what, which is that you should review your financial aid package, negotiate with the schools so you can make the best decisions. Also, apply for scholarships, just like David, Johnny, and I did, and kind of just be easy.
I think one more thing, though, I think this is really important, is the scholarship hunting doesn't stop once you get in and you start your freshman year. Exactly. That goes pretty much up until senior year. There are many organizations that give out scholarships to sophomores, juniors, seniors. Like that doesn't end once you get into college and you sign on that dotted line saying that I intend to come to your school and you pay that fee. It continues on, especially if you are taking out financial aid or you're taking out loans and things like that. Still apply for scholarships once you're in college. More places are liable to give you money if you are a college student and you are doing great things on your campus and you do have a grade point average. You will get more money. It's just a matter of finding the scholarships that are out there, using the resources on your campus. I think that's also a really big thing. Talking with people. You never know who knows who that can help you out, and I think that's really big.
I think that what you said, David, is correct, that the scholarship doesn't quit once you get into college or you transition into college. Another thing I forgot to say, but it's super important. Okay, first of all, why would anyone or any college necessarily give you money based on the grades that you got in high school? They don't know if that's necessarily good grades. I mean, the grades could have been inflated. So what a lot of universities do is they just give you a little bit of money. And then once you go in and you go through your freshman year, if you do well, then they give you more. It's kind of like, we want to see what kind of work you're going to do. Can you even make it through your freshman year? Can you even make it through first semester? So you almost have to have a little bit of faith. You might not necessarily get all the money that you might want. They might give you some. But if that's the college that you want to go to, you're willing to work hard and put in the work as well as, do whatever it takes to make money to get through school, then go ahead. But just just understand that that freshman year in college is super crucial. So you're going to transition from high school into college of your choice. You might not necessarily have all the money, you might have some. But if you do well, like you said, you communicate with other people, let people know what you're doing, what your aspirations are. People will recognize hard work and give you money. So,
I
yeah,
agree.
I forgot about that. Did I tell that story? Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't have all of college or the money for college. I know in sophomore year, I didn't even know how I was going to pay for college. But I remember at one point, I think it was either sophomore or yeah, my sophomore year sometime, I remember going into the dean's office and I was talking to a friend. And I was telling them like, hey, yeah, I got back in at 2:00 in the morning from working, and the dean came up and she was like, why did you get in at 2:00 in the morning? I was like, because I had to work to, pay for my living expenses and go to school. And so she was like, well, would you be interested in a scholarship? In my mind, I was thinking like, hell yeah, like, is that even a question? And so I said, yeah, sure. And I didn't say what I thought out loud. And so she told me about a scholarship, which was for, at the time, $15,000. It was the UPS scholarship. And so I became the first part of the first cohort at the AUC to become part of the UPS scholars. And so that's how I got the majority of my tuition paid for. So it's also being in the right place at the right time. So,
I totally agree with that.
oh, like I could go on and on about how much money I got for being in the right place at the right time. But again, it's because I worked hard, communicated with my professors, and actually got to know them, that they knew what I was, shooting for and trying to go for after college, and what I was working towards, so that they could tell other people, because you know how it is in college. What happens is administration, they talk to one another about students, and they go, is this a good person? What are they like? Do they have good character? So that's super important. Do you have any other tips before we shut down this webinar?
Um, any other tips? It's just the search never ends. Keep up the search and keep up the faith, and just know that it will work out. I think that's the
If you
biggest
do
thing.
your part, you can't just
But
have faith
you,
without
but
doing your
you,
part.
but you have to be prepared. Like you said, be prepared to work, and just know that things will work itself out as long as you put in the work for it.
Right. I always say success is when preparation meets opportunity. So you keep preparing, you keep working hard, and an opportunity can arise, and boom, there it is.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, David.
All right.
And
Yeah.
we are going to finish. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you can learn more about how to get into college or graduate school, graduate from college or graduate school, and start your career or business.